very good evening and a warm welcome to State of Business on Art Television. I'm Shahin Ali and let's have a look at the headlines first. Sri Lanka is presently focusing on economic diplomacy, government official says. Sri Lanka's traditional production, Dumbura Ratha, was inscribed by UNESCO. News in detail. The 16th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage was held recently. The annual event brought together nearly 800 participants, including representatives of states, parties, non-governmental organizations, cultural institutions, and other stakeholders from across the globe. The 16th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage was held fully online from 13 to 18 December 2021. Secretary-General of the Sri Lanka National Commission for UNESCO, Punchinelame Migaswatha, chaired the annual gathering, which brought together nearly 800 participants. It includes representatives of states, parties, non-governmental organizations, cultural institutions, and other stakeholders from across the globe. The event was to be held in Colombo. Due to ongoing pandemic, it had to be conducted online. However, the opening ceremony was organized at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. Lighting of the traditional oil lamp with traditional Sri Lanka music, dancing and drumming symbolized the majesty of Sri Lankan culture at the opening ceremony. Sri Lanka, as the proposed host country, was given special attention during this session. Deputy Director of UNESCO, Sinku, addressed the audience on behalf of UNESCO. On behalf of the Government of Sri Lanka, Ambassador and Permanent Delegate of Sri Lanka to UNESCO, Professor Kanishka Hiriviregamak welcomed the participants, ministers, dignitaries of state parties, including non-member state parties, experts and the NGOs from around the world. The Dumbura Ratha Kalala were recently inscribed by UNESCO on its prestigious representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The announcement was made by UNESCO on the 15th of December at the 16th session of the Intergovernmental Committee that implements the 2003 International Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage held recently. From 13 to 18 December 2021 at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. Inscription of the traditional craftsmanship of Dumbura Ratha Kalala weaving by UNESCO. Sri Lankan Dumbura Ratha Kalala or Dumbura mats are traditional handmade mats used as wall hangings, tapestries or cushion covers. The mats are made in a few villages such as Kalasirigama and Alokagama by a community called Kinnara and the traditionally supplied ornamental mats to the royal palace as part of their obligatory service to the crown and to ruling elites between the 15th and 19th centuries. The inscription of the craft will improve its visibility, enrich its practice, empower the artisan families, and ensure the viability of this traditional craft. At the same time, potential dangers such as commercialization and overexploitation were highlighted, and the safeguarding plans already account for steps to protect the craft. Today, artisans weave the mats for local buyers and tourists. The Dumbura Ratha Kalala were recently inscribed by UNESCO on its prestigious representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. UNESCO made this decision after examining a nomination prepared by a committee of experts appointed by and working with the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs in Sri Lanka. The National Library of Sri Lanka, the Documentation Services Board of Sri Lanka, the Divisional Secretariat offices of the two relevant districts and the traditional crafts families of the two villages also worked hard for the endeavour. Director and UNESCO representative to Bhutan, India, Maldives and Sri Lanka, Eric Fold, specially congratulated Sri Lanka for being generous to share the knowledge and skills on the subject. UNESCO Director also said that the community as well as the country has all the rights to be proud over their creations.
I am very pleased that Dumbura Ratha Kalala from Sri Lanka has been inscribed on UNESCO's representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Dumbura Ratha Kalala relates to the traditional craftsmanship of making a type of mat used as wall hangings, tapestries or cushion covers, ornamented with well-defined cultural motifs and designs. Traditionally, the knowledge and skills of the craft are transmitted from parents to children within a family. I would therefore like to offer my warm congratulations to Sri Lanka and to all those who worked on the nomination. This is the second element from Sri Lanka on the list after Rukada Natya, which was inscribed in 2018. I hope that this new recognition by UNESCO will instill feelings of self-pride and socio-cultural equality in the Dumbara Ratakalala community, who have every reason to be proud of their high-quality workmanship and their creative genius.
Stay tuned for more news right after this commercial break.
ගුරුත්වය අභිබවන්නට ඇති හැකියාවෙන්ම ක්‍රීඩකයෙකු නිර්වචනය කළ නොහැකි එය සබඳතාවයක් නොනවතින රිද්මයක් ජීවිතයටත් ක්‍රීඩාවටත් පණ දෙන නිරන්තර හදගැස්මක්.
It's time to wake up, Mahela.
දශක ගණනාවක උත්සාහයක ප්‍රතිඵලයක් මිනිසා සහ තාක්ෂණය කියන දෙක අතර හවුල්කාරකම හැම සීමාවක්ම අභිබවන අසමසම සැබඳියාවක් SLT මොබිටෙල් එකම එක සැබඳියාව.
Welcome back after the break. Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Admiral Jayanath Columbage, stated that Sri Lanka is presently focusing on economic diplomacy and that each move towards this end will be made with a spirit of collaboration with the region and the globe. The Foreign Secretary made these observations while delivering the inaugural Lieutenant General Denzil Kobakadua Memorial Oration as organized recently by the Institute of National Security Studies in Colombo.
Poverty alleviation and economic development. If somebody thinks only Sri Lanka is having this economic trouble, no. Many countries are having. America did not have enough turkey to eat during the Thanksgiving because the supply chain didn't work. So it's not only Sri Lanka. Everywhere there are problems. But we know it, we feel it because we live in this country. Then another threat is technology. Technology is a great thing, right? But if someone is abusing it, misusing it, that will be a threat. Whether it is artificial intelligence, face recognition, cyber, big data, all these things are great things. But if someone decides to abuse it, then it can be a bigger threat to a country. Then, of course, religious extremism and terrorism, we are not immune from what is happening. The perfect example is Easter bombing. We had nothing, as a country, nothing to do with ISIS ideology, but then we became victims. Then, of course, transnational crimes like drugs, human, weapon, then other illegal activities, and preventing of pollution. All these things need a common approach. All these things are important for common survival and not what we don't want mutually destroy each other, but we want to survive as one world and one common objective.
Foreign Secretary Admiral Columbage further states that a nation's government and people shape its foreign policy and that its history has a strong bearing on the determination of such policies. Delivering the inaugural Lieutenant General Denzil Kobakadua Memorial Oration, he added that diplomacy is the main tool with which foreign policy is translated into international action.
When you talk about national interest or foreign policy start at the national level. Foreign policy of a country start at the national level. There are a lot of internal and external dynamics influencing the foreign policy of a country. Also, the foreign policy executive, in our case, it is His Excellency the President, the government, the people shape the foreign policy of a country. There are internal factors and there are external factors determining our foreign policy. History of a country has a very strong bearing on determination of foreign policy. Know your history before you look to the future. This is a simple theory. Know your history before you look to the future. Foreign policy is also driven by the position of the country in the international system, the relative position of the country. And it is also dependent on the material power.
Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a positive note today. The All-Share Price Index gained 136.86 points to close at 11,951.23, and S&P SL20 gained 32.01 points to close at 4,251.53. The turnover was 6.6 billion rupees and over 204 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. And that's all news for today. See you tomorrow with State of Business at the usual time.